Okay guys, Math 3, we're looking at a review of simplifying radicals. These are all techniques that you've learned in Math 1 and Math 2, so we're going to kind of go through it a little quick. Alright, so first thing we want to talk about, of course, is what parts of a radical are. You see the part that's underneath the radical sign is called the radicand. It's the inside part. And then the index is that little number that gets squeezed into that little crook of the neck. For all of these, they're going to be square roots, so it's going to be an index of 2. Later in the year, we'll do indexes of 3, 4, 5, cubed roots, fourth roots, that kind of stuff. Okay? Any integer square you have, if you square it, it'll make what we call a perfect square. Alright? And here's an example of some of the perfect squares. Alright? And what I want you to do is finish that list on your own. I hope you recognize the pattern. It's 1 squared, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared. So of course the next one would be 49, etc. So if you'll finish that list out, that's an important list that you want to use because it helps us when we do our simplifying. Take a minute to do that now. Alright, to simplify a radical, I've got some notes for you here, just kind of step by step. First we're looking for a perfect square factor that will go into the radicand, so the radicand's whatever number's on the inside. In this example it's a 12. If I think up here and I want to know what perfect square factor goes into 12, then of course my answer right here is 4. 4 goes into 12. So I'm going to split the radical into 2 pieces, square root 4 times square root 3. Now my step 3 says simplify the radical that is a perfect square. Remember, we chose 4 on purpose. We chose 4 because it was in this list. It's a perfect square. So the square root of 4 is 2. But the square root of 3 is not perfect, so I just leave it where it's at, and I leave it as 2 square root 3. That's kind of it. Let's go through a handful of examples and see what we got. I recommend you hit pause as often as you need to make sure you get each step. Okay, my first step here was which perfect square will go into 28. Out of my choices up here, 4 times 7. 4 is a perfect square. 7's not, but 4 is a perfect square. Now I like that 4 is a perfect square, so I mark it out and change it to a 2. The square root 7 remains, and that is the answer. That's as far as I can go. We'll try it again. Try it here with the 32. Which one of these perfect squares will go into 32? Alright, notice I actually have 2 choices. 16 is a perfect square, so 16 times 2 would work. But so is 4. 4 is a perfect square, so I could do 4 times 8. Alright, so we recognize that the square root of 4 is 2, and I'm sorry. I was down here. I forgot where I was. So we have to make a choice as to which one of these we want to do. Generally speaking, they both work, but any chance we get, we want to do the one that is got the larger factor. And that's the same reason as when you're reducing a fraction. You guys remember way back when you were doing fractions, you know, sometimes you would get a fraction like 20 over 80. And you would say, hey, how do I reduce that? And some of you would reduce it by 2. And you'd say, well, it's 10 over 40. And then, oh no, I had to reduce it again. So then you'd reduce it to 5 over 8. And you would keep reducing it until you got to the end. Well, this is the same thing. If you choose a smaller number, you'll have to redo it. So any chance you get to use the bigger number, always do. Square root of 16 is 4, so my answer here becomes 4 square root 2. For the 98, I got to think about which one's going to go into 98, and it's actually not listed up here, so I hope you finished your list. But it's going to be 49 times 2, and of course I recognize immediately that the square root of 49 is perfect, so it's 7 radical 2. If you have a number on the outside, you're just going to keep that number the same. Don't lose it. It's still there. And it means you're going to multiply. So right here I've got the 4 times 5. 4 is perfect. So I'm going to scratch that out. Put 2 in its place. And with that 3 and the 2, that means multiply the 3 times the 2. Really, it's the same thing on this last example. Alright. If you have any questions, pause, come back, talk to me later. Appreciate it.